I started my business, yes, I wanted to build a successful business. Actually, at the beginning, I didn't even know if I wanted to build a successful business or if I just wanted like a lifestyle business, like just a little something, because again, I was burnt out.
Yeah.
So my focus was, what is the life I want and what does that look like holistically? I went through like a whole life vision exercise that I actually do with like all my clients, but really looking at, yeah, when you got career goals or you have business goals or whatever, what do you want your life to look like? What do you want your days to look like? What do you want your weeks to look like? Your relationships, your health, and then you build your career or your business with that in mind or even around that. A lot of people, again, because they're like, no, I got to go all in and I have to do this, they'll get lost in more. That's one way to do it, but it's not necessarily going to make you more money. And it's not necessarily going to work for your business, right? So it's like, there's 100 ways to build a successful business. You have to decide what you want yours to look like. I don't want mine to look like hustle and rushing and like anxiety. I want it to be like, okay, let's slow down. Let's do it right.
What's up, guys? Welcome to the Perreira Show, where I interview founders, creators, entrepreneurs, and high performance about the intersection between mental health and well-being and business and success. And this week I interviewed Katy McFee. I met Katy through LinkedIn a couple of years ago as we were both just posting similar content around mental well-being, mental health, coming from maybe toxic work environments or just going through burnout. And Katy shares her story of going from the top of the ladder. You know, she had made it. She was executive vice president after working her whole career to get there, to feeling burnt out and unfulfilled, and ultimately leaving that job and doing a little bit of soul searching. And she shares her journey into the world of coaching, where now she helps female leaders get into leadership, get into executive roles, and really helps them with their executive presence. Katy just has a awesome, demeanor and way about her and lightness. And it's just awesome to hear her share her experience of going through this transition. Hope you enjoy it. I feel like there's a lot of green going on you got the mug, your shirt, the background.
I know, I kind of match.
Yeah.
I think I go through like phases with colors and I'll like buy a lot of that color. I don't know.
That's great. Yeah. I had this girl I dated in college. I don't know why I thought about this. This girl I dated in college, one of her best friends, loved brown.
Wow.
And she was the first person I ever met who loved brown. Like she loved brown, and she was very well put together, just, with her, I guess the clothes she wore, even in college, right? And how she decorated her place. But I just remember, I'm like, there's a lot of brown in here.
All right. My ex-sister-in-law really liked orange and brown. And even when she got married, her bridesmaids wore chocolate brown dresses. Wow. And she had orange Gerber daisies. And I was like, it was in the fall, and I'm like, this is a vibe.
Playing into it. Yeah. That's very 1980s San Diego Padres baseball uniform vibes. That's what I think of.
Yeah, she wasn't quite old enough, I think, to be that into that. But you never know, right? Everyone's got their thing.
How's the rest of the day going? How's everything been?
Things are so good. Yeah. Things are really good. Yeah. I mean, it's summer. I've been running a lot lately.
Cool.
Because I'm training for another ultra. And so I'm just feeling good. And I'm exercising a lot and walking at noon just because.
Wow. How long is an ultra again?
It's anything longer than a marathon. So this one is 50K. And then I'm going to do a 50 mile in March in Antelope Canyon, which is going to be crazy beautiful. Yeah.
Wow. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Dang.
I know.
That's great. I love that. I love that training for something. That just makes such a big difference, huh?
Yeah. I just realized in this stage of my life, I just love doing challenging, hard things and then doing it. Yeah. Right? I just love having that challenge to look forward to and working towards it all the time. And yeah, I love it.
That's so amazing. Have you not always been like that?
I think I've always been this way to an extent, but oftentimes, I'm a lot more well-rounded in that way now. I think when I got into my career, I was one track mind, so focused on the career success.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas now I'm what are all the areas I can, find to do hard things in? So I think it's just I've probably always kind of been like that, but now it's maybe more intentional.
Yeah, that's great. I'd love to hear it. That's actually that's kind of a good segue too, because, my whole vision, my intention with this show is to bring people on, for one, who actually want to talk to, and enjoy. And, but I think mainly is to explore, right, this intersection of well-being, of mental, emotional, physical, spiritual well-being, and business and high performance and success. Right. And really how, they can fuel each other, and it doesn't have to be an either or thing like so many people live. Right. Like this, I know there's this initial hesitation to things like presence and peace and calm and stillness, because people are like, but what the fuck's that going to mean for my job? Like, I just won't care anymore about, and I'm like, no, of course not. So I think the more I talk with people, the more I see like how, especially people that are like doing their own thing, that are high achievers, that started their own business, that have their own practice, that are, have learned to really tap into something, and navigate that in their own and describe it in a way, of course, like that was true to their own experience and their own takeaways. So that is really kind of what I'm trying to figure out.
I love that. I think it's so needed, because I feel this is something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people out there sharing a narrative, which is, guess what? When you start your own business, you're going to work 12 to 14-hour days. You're going to be eating like ramen and, just this whole idea that like you're going to sacrifice. It's not easy. And while I agree that it's not easy, I'm like, let's not pretend that it's super easy to do this and do it well and you're going to be successful from day one, because that's not true.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that you can do it in a healthy way and maintain a good, if you want to call it, people say work-life balance isn't a thing, but whatever you want to call it, work-life blend or a life that you love or whatever you want to call it. But I'm a firm believer you can do it. And I've been on both sides of that coin, right? Like when I was an executive, I burnt out. That's part of the reason I left the corporate space. So I wasn't willing to do the 14-hour days, any of that stuff. I was like, I'm actually doing something really hard. I'm going to try and create a successful business and not be that person.
Yeah.
And it's possible. Is it easy? Maybe not, but it's very possible.
It reminds me of, I started working with Ray Green, who I met through LinkedIn. I don't know if you know Ray, but he's a business coach for coaches, consultants. He works with mostly fractionals. He doesn't actually really work with people who do what I do, which was kind of cool in there. And Ray's a great dude. And one of the things when I first started working with him, I was like, hey, I got these things I want. I'm kind of doing one-on-one. I'm doing cohorts. I've got this community. And I was burning out. Because I'm I'm trying to do everything because I'm reading online. No, you start with one-on-one and then you do cohorts and then you do a community and then you have digital courses. And so I had gotten lost in trying to make the business work. And of course I was working really hard on it. And anyway, what he said to me, well, first of all, he's like, let's start with how you want your life to be. Right. And he's like, because all of it is possible. Right. He's like, you could have a great community, great one-on-one. He's like, but if we don't start with what you actually want, it doesn't matter. And it was I was like, oh, amazing. And so I think to your point is you went into it with this is what I want. Yes. I'm leaving this because this ain't working. I want to have my own business, but I want to do it in a certain way. Otherwise, what's the point?
Yes, it's so true, because when I set out to start, I never even actually realized that. That's such a great insight, because when I started my business, yes, I wanted to build a successful business. Actually, at the beginning, I didn't even know if I wanted to build a successful business or if I just wanted a lifestyle business, just a little something, because again, I was burnt out.
Yeah.
So my focus was, what is the life I want? And what does that look like holistically? I went through a whole life vision exercise that I actually do with all my clients, but really looking at, you got career goals or you have business goals or whatever, but what do you want your life to look like? What do you want your days to look like? What do you want your weeks to look like? Your relationships, your health, and then you build your career or your business with that in mind or even around that. And I was in a mastermind. It was awesome with a bunch of women where we talked about that. It's the whole idea of design your business around your life. not the other way around. And it's kind of radical, right? Like a lot of people, again, because they're like, no, I got to go all in and I have to do this, they'll get lost in more. And one thing I've learned from starting a business and being around, like really creating a network of business owners, is that you can do that. That's one way to do it, but it's not necessarily going to make you more money. And it's not necessarily going to work for your business, right? So it's like, there's 100 ways to build a successful business. You have to decide what you want yours to look like. I don't want mine to look like hustle and rushing and like anxiety. I want it to be like, okay, let's slow down. Let's do it right. So you gotta be intentional about it though, because it's easy to get swept up.
I think because you also can just pose a question like, what do you really, really want? Okay. And then they answer, okay, well, what does that unlock for you? You know, I love that question, that follow up, because, you know, you start to see the things that we're after are not really the things that we're after. Everything we're doing is to get a feeling.
Yes.
That's why we're here on earth. Like we're feeling beings. And so everything we do, even though we justify it logically and we say, oh no, I do this and then my run rate, you know, and then I get recurring revenue and then I have this many and then I get a second and now it's passive and I'm working with these. And it's like, okay, let's just stop for a fucking second.
Yes. It's like, so what?
Yeah.
So what if you get that? Then
what do we actually want?
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you actually want?
This is about you today. We can come. You know what I want today is I want to talk to you, interview you.
You're going to get it.
Yeah, let's do it. This is a good point. What I would actually like to start with is just, can you give us a high level of what you're doing now, who you're working with, and then, you know, I'm going to ask why. So if you want to feel like weaving that in too, and like what you left behind.
Yeah. Well, so ironically for this show, I work exclusively with women and I work with women specifically who are aspiring leaders or who are already leaders or executives. Yeah. And I want to help them transition to senior roles and really thrive in their roles, not burn out, create a life they love along with a career that they love and create all the success that they want. And that was really built on, because when I first launched my business, that was not going to be my business. I don't know if I ever told you that before. Yeah. My business was going to be like business advising, like strategy and sales consulting and all that stuff, because I had a background in that. But very quickly, I realized as I started creating online and I started working with clients that I was really passionate about helping women specifically make that transition and really succeed in those leadership positions. And it all comes down to my passion around closing the gender gap and having a bigger impact in that area. So it's very mission driven work that I'm doing. And I love it. Is it
fair to say that you're helping women now with all of the stuff that you had to figure out?
Totally.
And what you
It's one of I'm lucky that in my own career, I really struggled to get to senior leadership and to make that transition. So I learned a lot during that time. And so what I want to do is I want to help women learn that a whole lot faster, even not have to go through some of those challenges that I went through. Yeah.
Isn't that so amazing? Like if you really step back, like to another planet, you know, we're standing on Mars right now looking at Earth just so we can get the whole thing in scope. But it's like, how could it have possibly have happened any other way for you? To be on this path that you're on now, helping women with everything you're helping them with, like, do you ever pause and look back and be like, of course I had to go through all that shit, have that shitty boss, be talked down to by that person, like all of these things that are still very much a part of you and what you help people with?
Yeah. I mean, okay. At the time that I was at this company for 8.5 years, trying to make VP and not getting that title, if you had said, hey, we can just like put you on a rocket ship to the top, I would have been like, yes, sign me up. Right. Like I would not have chosen all of those struggles.
Yeah.
And during that time, when I went to that company, it's kind of funny. I love telling people this because they're always like, my old boss was trying to recruit me to Shopify. And it was like, I could either go to this company or I could go to Shopify in 2010. And he's like, you can do whatever you want. You can run a team. We're going to give you a bunch of options and whatever. And I was like, nah, I'm not interested in e-commerce. And so, obviously there was a time that I was like, am I a fucking idiot? Like I totally could have, but I definitely wouldn't be where I am now if I had done that. I don't know where I would be, and maybe it would be a great place too. But, when I look back, if it had been easy for me, I would never have done the level of reflection that I did on what is needed, like what makes a senior leader, what are the things that hold us back, all of that stuff, if it hadn't been so painful for me, right? So it was a blessing in the end.
Of course. Yeah. Well, real quick, my missed opportunity, yours was Shopify.
Okay.
Mine was, I was at a pretty low point mentally, and I was working for a really toxic, narcissistic boss. I was making good money and I really wasn't having to work much, but I was like, this ain't it, you know? And I was in my like third tech sales job in 3 years. And my opportunity was I was going to move to Australia and bartend and coach CrossFit and reset and figure it out.
Yeah.
And instead, I got lured back to the Bay Area to join another tech company. Yeah.
That would have been cool.
Pretty much the same.
Yeah.
You know, what I'm really curious about is like, what do you see in your experience, of course, with like, what's going wrong with women getting into leadership? Like, where do you feel like is the biggest missed opportunity for women?
It's tough. Yeah. So there's every year, McKinsey and Lean In create a joint report, Women in the Workplace. And they talk about the broken rung, which I think is a really important concept because we tend to think about the glass ceiling. When I think about the glass ceiling, I picture like women going all the way to the top and then they just like can't get past the like, you know, they're all VPs. They just can't get past the next sort of level. But that's not reality. So the reality is that the promotion gap starts at the very first promotion to management. And there's all kinds of reasons for that. There's all kinds of unconscious bias that exists and also conditioning that girls receive growing up that tells us like, don't advocate for yourself, don't rock the boat, like be a people pleaser, all of that stuff. And so all of that stuff works together to create an environment where it's harder for women, where women are less likely. And where the bias comes in is we often expect women to naturally, you know, exhibit the behaviors that we want to see in men. So like, hey, just advocate for yourself and not thinking that like, listen, this woman's been told for the last
whole life,
25 years of her life not to do that. So yeah, she's not going to be very good at it. So there's a lot that has to happen like systemically, I think, to equal the playing field for women. But I really believe that that's going to change when we get more women in senior leadership. So it's like a chicken and egg thing. It's like, we want more women in senior leadership. So we just need to like get more women in senior leadership. And so this is why I work with women on an individual level. So I recognize there's systemic change that has to happen, but I can't necessarily change all of that from sitting at my desk here. But I can work with women on individual changes that they can make that will help them advocate for themselves in a way that feels good and feel confident putting up their hand to share their great idea or communicate in a way that's going to land with senior leaders, right? So this is why I've created the program that I do now, is to really focus on those individual behaviors as ideally we also work to change things systemically.
Yeah. Well, of course, right? Like any change that we want to create at a high level, it always starts not just with the women you work with, but it starts with you.
Yeah.
It has to.
Yeah.
It's impossible to help create any level of change if the first drop, the first ripple isn't even being created.
Well, that's the thing. And part of the reason I focus in my program. So yes, it's like, how do I get you promoted? But I focus on stuff like mindset and I focus on boundaries, right? Because when I think about my own experience and by the time I became an EVP, it was, you know, on paper, my life was perfect. I had like this beautiful house on like a lake with my nice family and I had a big, nice job with a salary. And on paper, I had created my perfect life and I was miserable. So I was, and that's what true burnout feels like, right? Like you're just like, I was fragile. I was like breaking down. I'm like, what is wrong with me? I did not, you know, understand what was happening because I didn't know what burnout looked like. And I was burnt out from years and years of just not having good boundaries and overworking and sometimes not being aligned with what I was doing, because alignment with the work you do, of course, is a really important element of burnout as well. But not taking care of myself and like drinking wine every night. Like wine to go to sleep, coffee to wake up.
All checks out. That seems like the supported recipe that a lot of people follow and never question it.
Totally. And had I not burnt out, I always wonder, like, would I have ever questioned my drinking habit or my like, would I ever left the corporate space, if I hadn't have really like hit that low point? Yeah. Because a lot of people around me thought I was freaking nuts. Like they're like, okay, so wait, you're going to leave your EVP job. Like you've worked your whole career to get here and you're going to quit to be a coach. They're like, good one, McFee. So that was really tough because not everyone was like 100% supportive. Some people just thought I was out of my mind. But like I knew, I was like, there is something else for me and it's not this. But yeah.
Yeah. I want to talk about what you're experiencing with burnout a little bit because I think it can show up in a lot of different ways for people. And I think you're right. Like it's not one thing. It's not the drinking. It's not the coffee. It's not the working too much. It's not necessarily the misalignment. Although I would say that's probably a big one, a really big one. But it tends to be kind of everything, and everything tends to be a symptom of something that is happening much deeper, right? And maybe you're just going through the lesson that you're going through, which I think, maybe more of a spiritual concept, that we can chat about. But really, what was it feeling like day to day? Like, how would you describe that, reflecting back?
Like when I say I was fragile, that was like kind of almost the best way. Like I'm a person, I'm an optimist. Yeah. I wake up every day and I'm happy and I'm like smooching my kids and I'm going for a run. Like that's how I kind of operate. And I was not like that. Like I remember like, there's these events that happen that like burn into your brain. So I remember one day I like walked into the kitchen and maybe my partner was like emptying the dishwasher or maybe I was, and I was just like bitching about like people at work. I was just like, bitch. And he kind of looked at me. He's like, this isn't you. Like he was kind of called it. He was just like, you're not yourself these days. Like this isn't the Katy that I know. Right. And that kind of really hit me because I was like, yeah, that's true. Like I didn't have it at that point. Like it's hard to see yourself. Right. And then how you're showing up.
It sneaks up on you.
It does because it slowly kind of happens. So that was one thing is like when he said that, I was like, oof, like right. Oh, like that one kind of hurt or just like woke me up a little bit. I was like, yeah, how am I showing up? I'm complaining a lot. I'm really negative. I was just complaining about people. And I was just like, so there was that piece. And then there was the sort of fragility piece where I was not feeling like emotionally strong. Yeah, I was just struggling all the time. And like little things would set me off. And I was just like, I would like break down crying. And like, again, like I didn't know exactly what was wrong. We had also moved to a different place. Like I said, we're on a lake, but I usually live in like right now I'm in the city and we're pretty much downtown. Yeah. I lived in this neighborhood for 10 years. And then during the pandemic, we're like, here's an idea. Let's like move out. So I was like, is it this? Is it that I hate it this much that I like can't handle life? Like I wasn't totally sure, what was going on, but there was like negativity. And like I said, this just like fragile state of like, just feeling like I was going to start crying all the time and not being able to handle stuff and feeling like my partner hates me. He's just going to leave me. And like, I was just like not myself. I wasn't feeling confident. I wasn't feeling good. So yeah, it was like all these symptoms. And then as I started to kind of look into it, I started to realize it was burnout. But again, initially I was like, losing my fucking mind. Like, do I need to like go on medication, like on a depressant or something? Like I didn't know what it was, but I just knew like, this is not me.
Yeah. How long was that lasting or how long were you going through that?
Probably close to a year, maybe not even quite like, was when it was really bad, right? Like I think it was getting like growing over time. But when it really, like that really more intense experience was maybe 6 months. Like once that started to happen, I was like, holy shit, I need to do something. Like I couldn't just live like that. Yeah. I was like, this is, and it was interesting. Yeah. So I was in a sales leader peer group at the time with these awesome guys that like, so we would meet once a month. It was modeled after like the sort of YPO, Young Presidents Organization, like peer group model. And I showed up at one of our monthly sessions and I just kind of like had a breakdown. And these guys, it was so funny because they're just like a bunch of dudes that didn't know me that well. They knew me, like we were a small group, and they were like, Katy, we're hijacking the session. Like, what is going on with you? Like, this isn't you. We think you need to take some time off work and like see what you want to do. So again, that was another one of those events that kind of stopped me. And I'm like, yeah, I think maybe I need to take some time And like by the time it was like a couple days, like at that point in my career, I was like, I can't take any time off. This is Q4, you know, like.
Of course it happens in Q4.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not taking time off. Have you guys lost your minds? Did you forget what our job is? And they were like, no, you need to like go to a cabin alone and like sort out your life. So yeah, it was crazy.
So what happened from there? Like realizing, oh shit, like something is clearly off.
Yeah.
It really feels like burnout, whether you knew, to use that term or you were using that term or not. Mm-hmm. What happened after that? Like what was kind of the turnaround?
Yeah. So one thing is I started to think about drinking less. I didn't actually start drinking less yet, but I started to listen to podcasts about, women professionals and drinking too much wine or like some sober curious stuff and started to think about my health basically. And was I really taking care of myself the way I could? I always say that health is a pillar for me in my life. But when I looked at my life from the outside, it was not true. Yeah. The other thing I did is I actually went to a 2-day coaching masterclass. Now, coaching, like this world was not really on my radar at the time, right? Like it was
when you say coaching masterclass, what is it like to be coached or to become a coach?
I didn't even know. So my friend who had kind of gone through this coaching program, but she wasn't working as a coach yet, but I knew she was doing some coaching something, was like, hey, this place is doing a free masterclass. Like I'm allowed to invite somebody. You should go do it. It's like, it's for 2 days and it's like 1 or 2 hours at a time. And at the time I was like, I can't take this time out of my day. But then I thought, well, I'm going to go to it because at the very least, it'll make me a better leader. Right. So like, again, at this point, I had no plans to leave my job. Yeah. By the end of that 2-day coaching masterclass, I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to quit my job. It was organized by a boutique coaching academy called the Mind Rebel Academy, which is local here in Ottawa, but they coach globally. Or they train coaches globally. And this is the same place that my friend had gone through. And so I honestly, I don't even remember the content, to be honest, but she did talk about things like your authentic self. And she talked about, concepts like, what do you really want in life? And what would you do if you weren't afraid? And like just some of these things that like, hey, if you're in the self-help space, you're like, this is some pretty basic shit. But as Katy, at that point in my life, I had never thought about this stuff. I had never thought about who I was as my authentic self. Was I showing up as that person? Was I sort of doing what I really wanted to do? I had never stopped to think about what do I really want. I had just been chasing this title for years and years and years. And it had just become like a habit, right? Like, and so much of my self-worth at that point in my life was derived from my career success and my sort of status in that area. So the idea of quitting seemed insane. But like in this 2-day masterclass, I really, she kind of challenged us to think about like, what could that look like for you? What if you weren't afraid? What if you did take that step? And so, I did a very like mini version of a life vision even in that. It was just like very pared down. And we also did a wheel of life assessment. So if people aren't familiar, that like how happy are you in all these areas of your life? And it was just so eye-opening to me. So so at the end of that, I sort of thought, okay, I think I'm going to entertain the idea of considering this. Like it's just still like,
maybe, perhaps,
like
potentially at some point.
The thing I was going to let myself do was like brainstorm on a piece of paper what that could look like. Because I'd never even allowed myself to do that. Right.
Seems like an insignificant step, but that's so big.
So big. Yeah.
Right. To allow, like you said, the key word is like you allowed yourself to even, hey, let's fuck around.
I'm just going to write it out and be like, what could this look like? What do I really want my life to look? So I spent some time, like I had a little book and I was writing things in it and drawing little things. And like, again, like I had never, if I read something, it was a business book. I was like, I was always like eye on the prize, right? I'd never really taken this time. It felt almost like indulgent, but like in the best way. Right. And so, so I just kind of started to convince myself. And I was also very lucky that, my partner was very supportive. He also saw how miserable I was. So every day he was like quit your job. he's like, just go do yoga for a year. I don't care. I just like want you to be happy again. So I had a lot of support in that sense.
Yeah.
And I had been at the point in my career where, you know, there was a time I was a single mom with 2 young kids on a tight budget. If it had been that time in my life, could I have been like, I was going to quit my job and, you know, try this thing? Probably not, right? I would have had to approach it a different way. But we were in a place where I was like, okay, I can take 6 months and we are going to be okay for that 6 months. And then at the 6-month mark, if I have no clients, then I'll figure something. I'm a pretty hireable person, right? Like, so I figured I'd figure something out. And so that kind of is what got me over like the fear part, is that, you know, 1, having support, at least at home, and 2, knowing like I can give it this amount of time before I have to like really like freak out or think about plan B. And so then those 2 things together, I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. What do you feel like in that transition and in that process? Like what do you feel like has been the hardest part?
So I would say one of the hardest things has been not to fall back into that like hyperachiever mode, right? It was like, I came into this and I'm like, it's going to be a lifestyle business. I'm going to have a few clients. But then as I started to build my business, I was like, this is really fun. And I can have like a real impact on women and like in this space. And so that makes me want to do more, right? Because I want to have more impact. And so it's always like keeping my ego in check. And ego is something like we don't like to talk about that. We're like, me, I don't have an ego. I'm like, sorry, we're all driven by ego in some way, shape or form, whether it's fear or whether it's, you know, whatever. But so I have to remind myself, like, why am I doing this? You know, and ensure I'm not getting swept up in all of that and losing, like, you know, a big part of why I wanted to do this is the freedom and having a healthy lifestyle and really like being able to do the other things I want to do. And so remembering that and reminding myself on a regular basis that is part of this vision. I don't want to just get swept up in building the business.
Yeah. What is your, you know, I use the term practice a lot. I don't know. I like to think it reminds you of like sports, but like, what is in your daily practice that you do? Like, what are the pillars? What are the key things? What are the things that have made the biggest impact on you and cultivating this kind of this new Katy, this new version? Yeah, right?
A lot. So I've like revamped my routine. I remember when I ended up having a late baby. Like, so I had my 2 kids and then later on I had another surprise baby, my partner that I have now. And I remember when I was I was working out a little bit, but then I kind of fell off the bandwagon. Like I said, I wasn't all that healthy from a lifestyle. I was probably considered fit, but like, you know, I think I have a history of fitness in my life. And so a lot of that was just like, I had just hung on to it. But my routine now, so I have my morning routine. And it is like so important for me to show up as the person I want to be. So right now it consists of exercise, meditation, and like fueling my body with like good, healthy food, right? So I exercise first thing in the morning, come back, grab a shower and meditate. And then like eat and have coffee and that kind of thing. So that was a few things there. One, I started delaying coffee, which I never used to do. I started exercising first thing and I added meditation. So for most of my life, I was like, I can't meditate. I've got a busy mind. I later found out it's called ADHD, that busy mind that I always thought I had. And I realized I can meditate, right? Like I need to find the right meditation and I need to give myself some grace. But once you understand that, hey, your mind wandering actually means it's working, like you're good. Yeah. When you recognize that, then, you know, I actually feel that anyone can have a mindfulness practice. So that's a big one. And at night, I don't drink wine anymore. So I very, very rarely, if I'm celebrating something out, I might have like a glass of wine, right? But I used to drink like a half a bottle of wine every night. So this was a big shift for me. So I don't drink anymore. And then at night I read and I journal and I do affirmations before bed. So I've got an evening routine and a morning routine. And the one thing that I was doing that is now on hiatus is I was cold plunging every day.
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't heard
you remember,
leave that in.
Yeah. When you used to post your cold plunges, I was like, hey, dude, love what you're doing. You're totally insane. That'll never be me. And then
I remember.
And then I actually started cold plunging every day. So right now we're doing a big renovation in our yard. So my cold plunge is out of commission. So I'm not cold plunging. I sometimes turn the shower cold, but like it's just not the same and I hate it. So I'm partly just allowing myself a bit of a break, and then I'm gonna get back to cold plunging once that's all done.
Amazing. It'll allow you to appreciate it more potentially when you go back to it.
Yes. And I'm hoping to add in sauna. So we're getting a sauna. I don't know if I'll be able to do it every day because, like, again, there's just only so many minutes too that I can devote. I do have children and like, you know.
Oh, and you're running a business.
Yeah, there's things that I have to do. But I love it. Like, to me, I would ideally like to get to the state where I could be like every day I'm taking a sauna and cold plunging and like doing all that stuff in addition. So right now my life isn't quite there with the kids and the business, but hey, it's like a heck of a lot better than it was, call it a few years ago.
You know, it's such a good point too, even though we're kind of joking about it, but it is like, I think what I see a lot is people can get really hung up on, you know, like what to do. And then like one of the things I have guys do that I work with is I give them some habits to do every single day. You know, it includes things like journaling, includes meditation, includes exercise. I encourage them to go without alcohol for 2 months. You know, it includes sugar, mindful with screen time, right? Things that my big intention with it is to bring things into their awareness and into their, you know, atmosphere that they just haven't been intentional about.
Yeah.
You know, and so there's certainly things that a lot of people struggle with, like no screens at nighttime. That one is, you would think it's like level 10 out of 10 hard.
Yes.
And what I try and communicate always is I'm like, look, these things are here for a reason. These aren't a prescription. You know, these aren't me being like, you have to do things this way in order to feel your best. It's like, no, they're really here to kind of shake up your world in a little bit and get you to see that you can actually do shit that you put your mind to.
Yeah.
And you do have the time, and it's about prioritization. And sometimes when we do something like this, or I give them this checklist to do, this game plan, as I call it, it really makes you pause and look at, you know, what's going on in your life. However, the most important thing is to not get hung up on the actual method itself, to not be so attached to, I can't cold plunge. We're renovating the backyard. I saw like 4 influencers say you have to cold plunge because it releases this much dopamine, serotonin. That's going to make me more focused. It's like, dude, if your attachment to it is creating a negative result or a negative impact, then you also have to be mindful of that.
Well, this is the thing. So a little while ago, I wanted to try and do 100 days of consecutive meditation, and I got to 150. And then I went on vacation. I went to Banff and I went to Tofino, 2 amazing places. I was with my family. We were with some extended family. Yeah. And I didn't meditate a bunch of days. I remember the first day I was getting into bed and I was like, oh shoot, I didn't meditate today. And then I'm like, that's fine. Like, you know, old me might have been like, I better just squeeze one in now. And I was like, it's okay. Like, it's okay. It's great to do it and build the habit. And then but we want to be flexible with ourselves and not turn this into a new stressor in our life. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't, I think that can definitely be the negative side effect of morning routine. But again, all of these things, like they're opportunities for us. There's a positive purpose in us reacting negatively to like stressing out about not doing something. Yeah. It's like, hey, it's not about the execution of the habit. It's about your response to it and like how it's making you feel, whether you do it or not. That's what's more important.
Yeah. I think that my meditation practice has been the thing that's finally instilled that in me, because most of my life I haven't been like that. Right. It's like, I missed the day, like the world's going to end. And I'm a lot like, I just have such better perspective. And it's so interesting because I'm someone when I meditate, oftentimes I'm like, today was not the best practice. My mind was wandering, or I was, thinking about whatever. But that's okay, because on a macro scale, I notice that I'm more patient. I'm more tolerant. Yeah. I give myself more grace than I ever did. And this is something, with the women that I work with, a common behavior is we are so hard on ourselves, right? Like beat ourselves up, and like, I'm sure men too, right? But like, and so it's like letting that go and being like, you know what? And so I do actually do an exercise in my group where I have the women sort of take a childhood picture and look at that picture and picture themselves talking to that child the way they talk to themselves. Oh, everyone cries. Right? Because it's like, we don't realize like how hard we are on ourselves. So that has been a big growth area for me, I would say, through this whole, you know, bringing meditation into my life and on my business journey and everything. Is just like being a lot easier on myself. Right. And that's like, it's been so transformational. It's been like probably the best thing that has changed based on my routine.
What does your specific meditation practice look like now? Like when you sit down, are you doing guided, or do you have a framework you follow? Do you what's it look like for you?
Yeah. So I've done a few things. Like for a while I would listen to like more like music, or I would do different breathing. Right now I just do a guided meditation. I use the Calm app. It's super easy. I don't have to think about it. So I often do that. And the way that I started on my streak was I actually did the Mindfulness for Beginners series on that. It's a guy named Jeff Warren. I like him because he's very accessible. Like, he doesn't, like, some meditation people, they sound like, you know, a monk on a hill. And I'm like, I am so far away from you.
Now's not the time.
I am just like not like, you know, that is just so different from you know, me. And so it can just feel like I'm never going to get there. But this guy just like is like, sounds like a regular dude. So that's why I like it. It just doesn't make me feel like shit, I guess. I feel bad about myself. So I did that 30-day one and I really liked it. And so then I've just continued on with that. So that's what I do every day. And then I also like doing stuff like I really like hiking and being in nature. And so that might not be what I consider my meditation, but I think I do consider that another form of mindfulness that I engage in.
I think it depends on your intent behind it. And if you're going through and you're like watching Instagram reels on your hike, or honestly, even if you're like listening to podcasts that takes you out of your moment and your experience, or if you're really experiencing the experience of hiking. And I heard something similar listening to, it was like a stress relieving text. It was kind of like a meditation, but just how he framed it was like, it's focusing on your breathing, but not just focusing on your breathing, focusing on the experience of breath. And for whatever reason, when I heard that, I was like, I'm like, holy shit. I was like, I get it. Oh, I'm like feeling it in my body. I'm like, I'm here. It was so incredible. And I also love just how you shared how you're testing and tinkering with meditation, because it's really easy to be hard on ourselves. I think, we both work with high performers too. And so there's even more of that wiring. And with meditation, one of the things that really helped me is understanding like, hey, the goal is actually not to sit there and be total zen and have zero thoughts. Okay. Like and don't ever expect yourself to do that. Right. There's people that have been meditating for decades, and that's not what happens. They have to maybe be in a meditative state for 90 minutes before that they get to that point. But it's instead, just as you were describing how you've experienced life since then, it's the process of becoming more of a witness to your thoughts. So you no longer identify with them. It's only when we have thoughts that we identify with, does it create stress? Does it create anxiety? Does it create this just heavy and, this dark cloud of inner critic and all of this judgment? And the example you gave of, these women talking to their actual childhood self, it's a way of bringing that dialogue front and center into your awareness. And that's exactly what meditation does too. And it's like, how can I cultivate a state of still and presence? So that way, when these thoughts come up, I can see them, but I'm not going to like grab onto them and let them take me with them. And the result of that is much more presence, is the ability to have more compassion and empathy, like you were sharing with yourself. So when these things come up and you go, man, Katy would have, I could totally see that. I saw the thread and I almost pulled it, but I know what's on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And so I think for people that really feel like, man, I have ADHD, I can't meditate, or my mind, I just can't do it. I like to encourage people that it's not about sitting there in total Zen monk mode. It's about it's doing reps, right? Somebody described it. They're like, you're in the gym. Each time you do a squat under a barbell, it's a rep. In meditation, each time you bring yourself back to your breath, that's a rep. That's it.
Yes. That concept blew my mind, to be honest, because I always assumed that if you could meditate, you sat there with a clear mind. And this is why I was like, it doesn't work for me. And then when I actually started getting into meditation and learning, the exercise is becoming aware that your mind has wandered and then bringing it back. And and continuously doing that and like being aware of your thoughts. And around this time, I also read the book, The Untethered Soul. And so this whole concept of like stepping outside of our experience, like observing our, consciousness and our thoughts sort of unfolding as like a bystander. I was like I had never been introduced to that idea before. Yes. And it is so game changing. Like that is like, I would say most people walk around life and have never thought about this stuff, right? Certainly I didn't for the whole first, part of my life. And once you wake up to it, once you recognize that this is a way you can exist in the world, it is truly like the most game changing thing that can happen to you, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's no really going back.
Yeah.
You'll have your ups and downs, but there's no forgetting that.
Yeah. You can't unsee it, as I like to say, right?
Yeah.
You've seen it. You can't unsee it. Yeah. And I feel like I've taken this with me for like every area of my life. Like we both create online, right? This is how we spread the word, with what we do. And again, I see lots of people who are like, I spend 4 hours a day on this platform or 8 hours a day or whatever, all these crazy things. And I feel like I've created such a healthy relationship with being a creator on social media because some days I'll forget to go on. And I'm like, that was my goal, right? Like that's what I wanted. And yes, in the beginning, that was probably not happening as much, whereas now I'm a couple years into it. And so it's a little bit different. But I think that just that whole philosophy of like not getting so caught up in things, like allowing yourself to be like, remember, like, what is the goal? What is it I want? And like, what matters here? If you just maintain that perspective, just everything gets easier.
Yeah. It's recognizing, they talk about this in Zen Buddhism, but it's like recognizing the clinging nature of the mind.
Yeah.
The mind attaches to stuff.
Yeah.
It does. That is a part of its mechanism. Mm-hmm. Okay. We all have that. I have that. You have that. Like if we're in a human body right now, we have that. There is a clinging nature of the mind, and it clings to ideas, and it clings to thoughts and beliefs and maybe potential outcomes or expectations. And what meditation does is it like shines more of a bright light on those attachments. And when those are illuminated, we then actually have the opportunity to let go of them.
Yeah.
But we can't do that if we don't see them.
Yes. Yeah. It's all about awareness.
The less, the more we release work, and it's ever evolving, and ongoing because it becomes more subtle and shows up in different areas of our lives. But it allows us to just see it and boom, we can let go like that. Whereas before, maybe it takes a month.
Yeah.
Maybe it takes, 30 years of living a certain way.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know. I think this all the time. Like I was having this conversation with someone literally yesterday of this idea that so many people and like used to be me go through their lives and don't even think about like, am I happy? Or, am I doing what I want to do? Or, or am I, clinging to things? Like we don't think about it. We just do it, right? We just feel like this desperate like energy. And oftentimes when people aren't happy or when this is happening, it's like, it's masked by some kind of numbing behavior, whether it's doom scrolling or alcohol or like a whole being a workaholic or gambling, like the whole host of things. Right. And it's like, how much of the population is just like numbing these feelings instead of ever becoming aware, like ever just, learning about that and being able to have like a little bit more control over it. I would say it's like the majority will never see the light.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Have you read The Power of Now?
I haven't.
You know, so Eckhart Tolle.
I do know. Yeah.
Okay. So Eckhart, I heard this quote and he just shared, he's like, the purpose of life isn't happiness. The purpose of life is to become conscious, and because you can feel the shift that like, I just sense it in how you tell the story too. Like the moment, like your whole life up until you realize shit didn't have to be that way. And you start to have these breakthroughs and like, oh my gosh, wait, I can be aware of all my thoughts. I'm the one watching them. Like, wait, what does that mean? Wait, I'm getting in my way here. I'm attached to this over here. I reacted this way. Like, it completely shifts how you're living. And I think it's moments like that in those experiences that just reinforce that idea that, that Eckhart shared is like, man, the purpose is actually for us to become more conscious, which means for us to evolve and for us to grow and become more aware of our, like the areas in our life that maybe we're still hanging on to that just aren't serving us, and changing our relation to that and viewing those as all part of the bigger plan and the perfection and all of it. And anyway, we can keep going on and on.
I love this stuff.
But yeah. Who have been your biggest like influences or teachers or mentors? Like
in this most recent phase?
Sure.
So, that's a good question. So, I mean, I've been lucky to have a few different like groups I've been a part of. I've joined a couple masterminds. When I first launched my business, I had no network in this area, right? Like I like all my network was corporate. I didn't know any creators. I didn't really know a lot of business owners. So I had to work to kind of build that network. I would say one person who's been a mentor is, her name's Danielle Canty. She's one of the founders of Boss Babe, actually. And I joined her mastermind in, I guess would have been like August. And she has been awesome, like being part of her sort of community and group and getting some time with her has been really game changing for me in terms of just seeing what's possible and getting like real life advice and stuff. So she has been someone. Trying to think of like what other mentors. I don't know. I've kind of just been like doing my thing. Like I just, I've been trying to build community, but I don't know if I've had many like mentors in this space, similar to my professional, like my corporate career, really. I didn't have a ton of mentors. I had a couple, but...
I also think of it in, like if there's been any material, if there have been any like authors or speakers where you're like, damn, like I can't get enough of this person's stuff or whatever it is, like you mentioned with the meditation person on Calm.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but this guy gets it.
Yeah. I mean, I bought a bunch of, I really like Reshma Saujani. I just think that she's awesome and she does like a lot of stuff, for women. So there's a lot of people out there that just like post about like just women and equality and that kind of stuff. And like, I just have a lot of respect for that. Yeah. And then, in terms of other, like I mentioned the book, The Untethered Soul, that book was game changing for me because it was really the one that introduced a lot of these concepts to me. And I had not read a lot of that stuff, before that. Going through my coaching community, like my coaching certification at the Mind Rebel Academy, like that absolutely changed me as a person.
Amazing.
Yeah. So just going through the process of becoming a certified coach, but learning their method, but then just also, a lot of the principles of coaching and ICF coaching was just so eye-opening to me. Like the idea of authentic listening, when I discovered which is the idea of, right? Like you're going to reflect back to somebody, you're going to ask them questions like based purely in curiosity. Like you're not leading them. You don't know the answer. If you know the answer to a question, it's the wrong one. Right. Mm-hmm. So just this idea. And I remember I was thinking, because that morning I'd been having a conversation with my partner where he was saying something and I was like, you can't do that. Like, you're not going to be happy. And it was so ironic because I was like, wow, I was just like not authentically listening at all. I was just, so yeah, there have been I don't even know where to start. There have been so many, right? I listen to a lot of podcasts too, right? And so like I really like Ryan Holiday and Stoicism, a lot of the stuff he talks about with respect to Stoicism. I really agree with that, and I've read some of his books. So yeah, like it's funny because when you ask mentors, I'm like picturing like this like linear, like who has been a mentor, but it's like we find mentors in so many different areas that might not be obvious.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. All right. I love that list.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to end with just a sort of a fun one, just because of world events and the Olympics are going on right now.
Okay.
If you could medal in one Olympic sport, what would it be?
Oh my gosh. It would probably be running. Like, I think that, now I'm more into like longer distance, like ultra running, which is not in the Olympics, but maybe one day. So maybe I'd medal in that. But maybe in a different life, with a slightly different physiology, I would have been a sprinter. I mean, I sprinted in school, right? But like,
I've done 3 of these today, and everybody has said, well, the first 2 said the 100-meter dash. Yeah. So that maybe is kind of what you're... I'd
probably be like a 400-meter girl when I think about it.
Okay. Combine the long distance with some...
I was like, I ran 400-meter in track, so maybe I'd like tried harder. I don't know.
Oh, Katy, thanks so much. It was awesome. Yeah. It was great to chat. That hour flew by.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on. Where can people find you? And what can you help them with too?
So people can follow me on LinkedIn. I post every day about mostly women, leadership, but also life stuff. So I post there every day, and I've got a free weekly newsletter as well that I send out where I deep dive on a topic every week. And I can help. If you're a woman and you are looking to get to leadership, or you want to thrive as a senior leader, I've got lots of stuff for you. So those are the areas that I'm really focused on helping with. So feel free to reach out to me, and we can see if it's a fit.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Katy.
Yeah, you bet.